All right, so I'm want to continue developing these scenes today, and so um, inside of Unreal Engine, I do want to show you guys some tools that you might want to add to your scenes to better develop the animation side of them, to set keyframes and everything. These tools are new, and I like this particular one that I'm using here, the Locadrome one. That's pretty new, and I haven't used it before, but I did set some keyframes with it, and it seems to be working pretty well. So I do recommend it. Some of these things I've added in the Moodle as media for you to look at. So, for instance, this one that I'm talking about now from Locodrome, it's this one here, free MetaHuman animation tool for face and body control rigs. If I click on it, there is
Booking.com. The family must depart.
an animation that will take you through how this tool works, how to load it up, and all of that. It's pretty easy, actually. So it's pretty simple to put it in there. There's also another one that I added here that I think you should look at. That where did it go? Just had that open. Okay, yeah, here it is. Don't know why it changed. So there's this one. These links are in two different places. They're down here and up at the top too. Sorry, this is not the right one. Okay, whatever. Um, I'll have to open Moodle again. So I have links to this in Moodle, but you're going to go to Fab and you're going to just look for MetaHuman. And when you do that, go ahead and put on the free filter so that it might pop up anyway, but it's going to look like this. And there's a couple of different ones here. I don't know why there's two of these. They're both from Locodrome. I think maybe this one's just the face one, and this one has the face and the body. Technically, we don't need the body one yet, but I think you will later on. So, this does have the face and the body in it. So it should be in there. And so yeah, it talks about the face in here too. And it's got a link to that video that I just showed you as well. So saying how to use it. So this, all you do is it says buy now. But go up here and make sure that you turn on the personal uh, license. So again, a lot of these things in Fab are open source, and a lot of them are free if you're not a professional studio that in this case makes over $100,000. So since we can just choose the personal version, and then it's just add to project, and it will go right into your project. And when you put it into your project, when you add to project, it's going to come up in your content browser down here, and you're going to see a Locodrome folder, and you're going to see inside of that this Locodrome material. And that's what you drag into your scene, or that's what you open and it pops up in your interface. So that's what you want. The only thing you have to do to make it work is you need to go to plugins and do a search for common. Just type in common and look for the common UI plugin. So if you watch the video, that's one of the first things they say in there, that you need to activate your common UI plugin, because that's what it uses for it to come up in your interface inside of the editor. So with that turned on, it'll restart your machine, or you'll have to restart your not your machine, but your Unreal Engine. And then you can double click it or right click it and run it in as a utility widget, and it will come up as a floating window. So if I close this one, for instance, and I do that again, okay, so there you can see the face stuff is in there. So I'm going to run it. I'm going to right click it and run it as a widget, which will be a floating window like this, which you can use it as a floating window, but I've been docking it up here in my interface. Right there, kind of to the right of my outliner. And that way I can switch back and forth between my outliner and this widget. And so when you're working with your character inside the interface, and you do what I showed you last time and make an additive layer that you can set keyframes on, it's going to, if I want to say, as long as I have this, it's kind of smart in that it switches based on what you have selected to the correct controls for it. So if I've got the control board, additive control board selected, then it's smart enough that if I want to say, for instance, I was working earlier on the eyes of this. So right. And if I'm working on the eyes, so the eyes weren't open enough. Compare, like, look, if I'm using this, I can see that those eyes are not quite right. They're not as open as my eyes. And if I want to push it to the point where they're open like that, if it's a mistake and I don't like it, then I can not do it, or I can do something else. But if I want it to be like that, then I can go find the upper eyelid control here. So when you hover over these, they tell you what they are. So at first you won't know, but they're pretty good about sort of clustering these under the areas that you need to set keyframes on. So all this stuff is brows up here, all this is eyes, all this is mouth and tongue. So it's not exactly the same as the setup on the actual MetaHuman control board, but I think it's pretty intuitive. And so here's an upper eyelid. This is an actual eye. So if I want to open that one eyelid, when I click on this over here, it automatically went to that eyelid control down here. And I can then set keys on it. Now, I told you that, that if you're going to set an additive key, it's going to propagate across whatever section there are no other keys. So it interpolates, right? And if I open the eyes up really wide, it's going to interpolate all the way from here all the way over to here. And you can see that my eyes are not open like that everywhere. So I wouldn't want to set that key for that particular place to fix that unless I go find another place where I think it looks pretty good. And maybe I set another key to sort of lock the eyelid down where it is currently. So like right here, if I look at that mouth and those eyes and those eyes, it's reasonably close. I may still want to go in and set a few keys, but maybe I don't want the eyes like completely changed for that whole section. So here's a place where I could just go in and set that upper level key. Now, I don't know if they actually have that here. It's actually probably this, it might be this all button right here. But I feel I could try it and I guess undo, but I feel more comfortable for doing keys like that to just go up to where I know that I'm setting a key on everything right here, whereas the top level of those channels, and just set it there. That way, you know, again, I'm looking at these in sections, like is there sections and I want to adjust something, then maybe I'm going to adjust the eyes right there a little bit. So I don't want anything too close, because if I get too close to it, it's not going to have enough room to interpolate. But maybe I want to go find the next place where I think it looks okay. Like maybe, well, it's still pretty right there. I think that one looks okay. I might want to move the teeth down a little bit. But I'll go ahead and set another one there. So now I can have a couple of things where the keys are going to be where they are, and then I'll set additional keys in here to fine tune the eyes. Like there, you can see it's really, I'm opening my eyes super wide. And I might actually keep that wide all the way through there until maybe this one. I'll set another one there. So now I would zoom into this area and I can start using this one to set the keys in between these sections. What you want to avoid is going right, like going to this very next key. You might do that. I mean, because if the eyes are open really wide, that means I open them really fast, and so I might actually want to set a key on those eyes right there. But I could also go in and do it a little later, and it's going to interpolate and make it wide anyway. So now if I go back to the eyelid controls, I can go and set some keys on those. So there's a couple of things here. If I grab that I could put like the move tool on and it'll actually show up over here, but it doesn't actually, from what I can tell, this is really just for selecting. It's not so much for moving like these ones. These ones you can actually move. So what I've been doing is just using the channels over here. So if I want to open that eye a little wider there, I can just take this lid and drag it until it's a little wider. Same thing with the other lid. I can grab that one and you can see it's setting the keys automatically when I. Now, some of these keys have controls for both. You can do a shift selection, but it's kind of hard to do that over here because it doesn't really work well. So basically, if there's a control for both, like right now, I'm kind of looking up a little bit here, and I'm not looking up here much. So maybe I want to move those eyeballs. There's a control for both eyeballs. And I could click on that and open it up and do the Y control here. Or you can see that there's actually on the control board here, I could just drag that up a little bit and set a key on it. Or you can use the Y and set a key on it. You notice that when I move the channel, it automatically keyframes it. When I move the control over here, it did not automatically keyframe it. So I would have had to click the key button over here, which is the little diamond-shaped button to the right of each control. So I've basically opened the eyes up a little bit more. I could probably go even more. I noticed that my brow is way higher there. So there's some brow controls up here. Like this is raise brow all. I can click on that. And you can see it actually selects all 4 of these controls. And I do have an arrow here that I can pull those up, because it would be difficult for, I don't think I can like scrub the channel on all 4 control channels at once, but I can grab this and pull it up. And even though I could like hit these key buttons here, there's also a key selected button down here that I could use to set that in place, and you see those keys come up over here. There are, if you're working with a particular channel, let's say we open up this one right here. I'll just hit escape to unselect. And let's say this particular brow one, I want to edit the curves for. There's a curve interface right here that you can go in and you can select individual keys to move them around with your middle mouse button. You can move handles around as well. So if I'm adjusting the ease in and ease out on one of these, generally you want flat handles. That's an ease in to the move, whatever it is. So on this type of graph, vertical is always movement, whether it's positive or negative movement in a particular channel. It's always movement, and flat is always no movement. And it looks like, I mean, these are pretty sharp channels or curves. You use the right mouse button to drag around. But they do have like a handle here that eases into that sharp curve. So when it eases like that, it starts slower and it gets faster. And at the top, it hangs a little bit. Now, it doesn't hang on a really sharp curve like this much, but it does have a little bit of change in the velocity of the object, whatever it is that it's moving. And you can adjust these. And sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you want to right click them or select a bunch of them, right click them and make them linear, or break the handle on the right now the handles move together so that they're always flat, but you can break it so that you can move one differently than the other to get a very sharp, fast move. Like if you're doing a bouncing ball or something. I'm sure you guys have done that, right? In some kind of animation class where you're doing a bouncing ball exercise. You try to break the handles and make them sharp. But with a human being with a face, generally you might do that, but unless you're doing cartoonish motion, then it's going to be a little unnatural because we all start a little slow and speed up when we're moving. I would say the face probably is where you might get some sharp motion like that. But that's there for you if you want to adjust that. But right now I'm just editing my keys and trying to get something that looks kind of like what I have as far as the shapes of my mouth, the amount that my jaw is open. Like here, maybe the jaw is a little bit too open there. I might want to close that jaw a little bit, or I might want to just leave it. Like right there. You can see how far that mouth is open. It's a little bit further than this one. I could go in and adjust that jaw a little bit. So the jaw control is right here. And if I click on it, it's going to take me to where the jaw is, and I can just adjust the Y of that jaw a little bit to maybe make it a little closer to what I have. And you notice that I can't see my teeth there. Now I could look and see whether is that the lips or is that the teeth in themselves. But I can move the teeth around and have moved the teeth around in this because they were way off at the beginning when I did my teeth pose and stuff. So there, I could just grab some of the teeth right here, and the upper ones are here, and we'll just move it in Y a little bit, up a little bit, so that it's going to be closer. So if you go into this and really work on it, you could get a much closer to what you have in the animation. You can see here the big difference on the expressiveness of my eyebrows. These eyebrows are pretty much the same. I mean, maybe this one's a little bit higher, but on this one, the left one is much higher. There's almost a angled line between them. So if I really want to get that expressiveness of that face pose, I probably want to find the outer eyebrow and try to move that up a little bit right there. Now, which is right, the outer eyebrows right there, and we can just try to get more of that line between these two eyebrows. Oh, I didn't key it. So again, if you're moving these manually like this, you're going to want to key selected every time you move them. There we go. There's a lot of other things in here that I haven't completely explored. So, working with any control thing like this, you gotta get used to and familiar with how it's laid out, how the interface is designed, and what all the different affordances are in it for how you can keyframe this. And once you know that, it goes much, much faster. Of course, if you're doing a whole animation, it usually, by the end of it, you will be good at it, right? You'll be fast at it. Okay, so the other thing is this reference plane. So the way you bring the reference plane in is very easy. You already have it in your scene if you created your scene where you imported the animation. So I'm going to do a file save all here, and then I'm going to just go in my content browser. And when I imported my animation in, I talked about this last time, the process for that. So it's on the other video, but it ends up going into the capture manager. So it creates a capture manager folder, and inside of there is an imports folder. And you can see I have two takes here, a take one and take two. And the take two is the one I'm currently using. And if I go into it, this is where the ingestion process, what they call the ingestion of the media, this is where it puts the media files. So there's a sound wave in here that I'm using in my sequencer, but there's also an image media source. And to get this reference image in your scene, all you got to do is drag this image media source file into your scene. And it will automatically make a plane for it and put it in there. So when you drag it in, if I go to the outliner here, it's going to come up with the same name as this media file. Mine is ingested IS, I think it's ingested sequence video, V for video, and it's my second clip. And so that becomes an actual actor in your scene that you can then scale and move around. I scaled mine and moved it to be right beside my character here. And again, I turned it to unlit because it was kind of hard to see when it was on lit. It was easier to see if I switched it to unlit. But I just kind of placed it right into the shoulder of this MetaHuman, so it would be right beside it and I could see it fairly easily. And I'm mostly looking at my camera view when I'm doing my animation, because we did these face animations without much body animation. It's just got a little bit of head movement. And so you can just sort of zoom in to these and get as close of a view of them in this second window here. And just to review the way I'm putting on that second window, is you choose a side-by-side window setup right here, the three dots. I'm using the side-by-side window setup. So when I turn that on, I make sure that I make this one my camera view. So I've got it set to main cam, and which is my Cine Camera Actor. And on the left one, I always set it to perspective, and I'm focusing on the reference plane in that one. And I can see it a little bit on the other one too, but it's just, it looks a little better if I just, I can see it better here. So as I'm scrubbing through in my sequencer, it's going to change, and I can compare the two poses. Okay, so the reference image or the reference video, setting up your camera view. We've talked about that last time, and we haven't talked about lighting and background and all of that. So I do want to talk a little bit about that too. Like right now, it's fine. I'm just working on the animation, so I could go through and keep working on the whole animation just with this blank scene. I don't need any actual world around me yet. But eventually we're going to want to do that. We're going to want to have some kind of background or world that if we move the camera a little bit, we're going to be able to see different things and it'll look like there's something back there. It'll also affect the lighting. So we're going to want that too, to add to the mood and everything of the scene. So I suggest you do as much as you can just like this. I don't particularly like my lighting setup here. I kind of did it last time just off the cuff, but you know, it would probably be better for me to have maybe a more like a 3-point lighting setup. So if I was doing a 3-point lighting setup, and you know, you can do it kind of like whatever your reference image has, or you're going to change this anyway. But if I was just doing a standard 3-point lighting setup, I would use this light, my directional light that kind of came with my scene, as my main light and my key light. And so I'm just looking in camera where that key light might look good, like right there. Maybe I want it to come from this side. And then I want a fill light on the other side, and then I might want a backlight to highlight the hair. And if you're working on this part of it, like lighting, you might actually want to go ahead and turn your quality back up because it's just going to look better when you're doing the lighting. So I can go back to my scalability and set it back to cinematic. And now I see much better looking lighting. And then I want to add some other lights. So you can add a lot of different kinds of lights up here under the add button. You can go down to lights and you can do point lights or spotlights. I like using directional lights because they seem to work the best with different types of shadows and effects. So oftentimes if I want a fill light, I could do a spotlight, but if I wanted to fill, say, overall, the scene, then I might do another directional light and just point it in the other direction. And this can all change, and you can change it to spotlights later, but let's say I wanted to do another directional light. And you're going to get something where it says multiple directional lights are competing, and only one is going to be used for force shading. You might want to go ahead and set that. And the way you set that is to look in the details of the directional light. And you're going to look at forward shading priority is what I was looking for. So it's the forward shading priority. They actually say it up there for forward shading. And you can hover over these to see what they do. So forward lighting priority for single directional light that will be used for forward shading, translucent, volumetric fog. So I don't have to set it here because it does say that when the two lights have equal priorities, they'll be based on their overall brightness as a fallback. But I'm going to go ahead and set it so that little error goes away. And I'm just going to put a 1 in there. And I'm going to go back and set the lux on this down to like 0.5 maybe. And generally, I like my fill lights to have a little color in them. So I'm gonna, it's gonna depend on your scene, but I might put a little blue in this one and make the other one maybe a little warmer. And then I might want to put to complete the 3-point lighting, I need a backlight to sort of highlight the edge of the hair. And for that one, I probably would not use a directional light. Also, in this fill light, it would be weird because this is kind of, and you may not actually need this fill light later on. Once you kind of get your other lighting in, if you're using lumen and stuff, it's actually going to bounce light. And one light maybe all you need, along with the background. But if I want to create my sort of general rule is to keep the lighting as simple as you can. So I don't want 20 lights in my scene if I can help it. If I can do it all with 3 lights and lumen and a background that's actually adding light into the scene, then that's what I'll do, because it's actually going to make your system, your scene a lot more responsive to have less lighting. So for the backlight, I think I'll probably, just to simplify this, and I could change this later, is maybe I'm just going to use a point light. Some people don't like point lights and never use point lights, but I'm okay with them in some cases. So I'm going to make a point light and I'm going to put it slightly behind the character. And you have to decide where you think that's going to be best at. I think probably for me, I would place that kind of on the left here, close to his head. Slightly behind it because I don't really want it going on the face too much. And try to get a little bit of an edge glow on maybe one side, on the dark side of his head. And again, depending on my scene and what the lighting's going to be, I might make that some kind of color. It's just for the heck of it. We'll make kind of a red light. And probably I would want to go and pull that down a little bit in intensity. And you can mess with the radius settings here as well. Do that. That's kind of nice. A little red, even along the edge of the beard there. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the correct lighting for my scene, but I can always change it. I can always move it around however I want. I just now have 3 lights in my scene that I can use when I'm animating. And we could turn that fill light up if we want to see his face a little better. Don't want that much shadow on his face. So we can go to the other light and just adjust that a little bit. So I suggest having some kind of lighting in there that that you can adjust a little bit. And let's put that like maybe up to 0.8. Now I get a little bit more filled in on that lighting. And then I might want to go actually to the directional light, which is still kind of high, and bring that down to maybe 3. Now that light's looking a lot better. It's looking less blown out. I can see better modeling of the skin shading because the light is not as bright. Okay, so I would say minimum start with a 3-point lighting setup. So if you who's used 3-point lighting setup before? Okay, everybody? Okay, great. That's a basic kind of lighting that we'll also talk about in the virtual production class too, because we're going to do real world lighting. Okay, so what I want to talk about next is a background. I need a background in here. And I want to talk about an AI program. I said I was going to talk about some AI programs. This is one you guys should know about because this is not easy to make. To get a 360 background, you can find some online. Like if I just type in 360 rectangular image and look under images, we're going to see all these images that look like this. And this is the kind of image that comes out of a 360 camera. And we do have a 360 camera. I have a 360 camera that if we want to shoot, say, anywhere here on campus, we could go out and do that. In fact, we should do that one of these days, maybe on Thursday, and walk out, and I can show you how you can use it to on your phone, like you can control it on your phone. So a lot of times, like if I walk out, say, to the field here, and I want to shoot that, I have a little selfie stick that I'd have to put it on my head because otherwise I'm going to be in the shot. Everything in a 3D in a game engine like this, the ground is not really going to be in your scene, right? It's actually going to be underneath whatever 3D ground you put in there. It's rare to actually just have no ground and you just use the bottom of the 360 image, the background. So if you place yourself in the ground, you will never see yourself. If you absolutely have to take a shot and you can't do that for some reason, like maybe you want a shot closer to the ground, and I can only get so close to the ground with the selfie stick on my head, then maybe you can actually use your phone to, I've gone and hid behind a tree and taken the shot from behind the tree, and therefore I'm not in the shot. But there is some resources that you could find some free 360 shots online. Most of these are going to have watermarks because they're not free and they're some kind of stock film. So that's where AI comes in, because these are not easy. If you don't have a 360 camera, they're not easy to get. And so if you can make one, then you actually will be able to get one fairly easily. And if you can make one that is, even if you can get the right structure, you can probably change it to something else once you have the structure. And you can do that in AI programs as well. So, but the program that I use a lot is called Blockade Labs, AI Skybox. I put I think there's a link to it in the syllabus, but if you look it up, this is what's going to come up. And these are all different types of and styles of 360 equirectangular images. So when you download these, they don't really look like it here, but when you download them, they'll look like the ones that I just showed you. And some of these are realistic, like this one right here is pretty realistic. They won't have any seams. They'll cover the entire inside of your world. And the thing you have to understand with these is that you're making a dynamic game world. Now, some things, like if we were just doing this one shot and it's close up on the face and it's never going to go anywhere else and the camera's not going to move, then sure, you could just use this. But if you're going to have different shots from different angles and everything, then you wouldn't want static water, right? So when I look at this shot, the first thing I say is I'm not going to use that water, probably, because it's static. It's going to look weird. You can't have water in your scene unless it's really blurry in the background and you can't notice that it's not moving. So I would need some a ground plane in here with a beach and maybe some trees and some game water that moves. And then I would use all of this stuff back here of these mountains and some of these trees. So I would not even think that I was going to use all of this. Mainly it's from the 50-degree or the sort of the halfway up line or the horizon line up. So that if it is an actual game and the player looks up, they're going to see that. And if it's not a game and we're just moving the camera around in a cinematic, we're going to see different angles of this world. And I'm going to build up everything else. That's how you would approach these skyboxes. Some of these are really not that useful. Like if they're too close to you, then this one's pretty good because it's got some space between me and the stuff that's on the horizon. So if I'm doing a scene that's supposed to be in the future, that is kind of like in this sort of utopian future city that looks all pretty, with these kind of colors and stuff. All of this, what's nice about these is all of these colors are going to be part of your lighting. So when you bring in a skybox like this, it actually lights the scene. And so you're going to have some other lights that sort of should complement and sort of simulate this lighting in the scene. But it's not going to be it's not going to just be a background. It's going to also be a lighting source. But one like this one here, actually not that one. That one's okay. Well, that one's a little weird because look how high up I am. Like if I'm not making something floating in the air or like a floating city or something, or I'm on top of a mountain, that's my game scene is I'm on top of a mountain. This is too high up. Because if I have to have a ground plane, that ground plane is going to cut halfway into these buildings and going to cut off most of my background. So it's going to be, for a lot of scenes, not what I would want. And these buildings are probably too close to me. That's not a three-dimensional building. That's supposed to be part of the background. Look how close it is to where the camera was. It's not actually, sorry, there is no camera. It's rendering it, but there's a virtual placement of the camera and it's like within steps of this building. That's going to be a really difficult thing because if you need to move at all, you're going to be moving into the background. So there is some tricks to using this. Let me go ahead and make sure I'm signed in. I am signed in. And so I'm going to go to history so I can see ones that I've done. So these are all ones that I've done for different projects. And one thing you'll notice is that they all have a certain amount of space between the virtual camera and whatever is in the background. And there's a way to get that, because if you just type in a prompt in here, when you go to creating something, let's say, okay, let's go back in there a second. Let's say I go in here and this is the prompt that I typed in. Overgrown, crumbling alien castle ruins in a wide open grass plain with a blue river running through it, wildflowers and scattered boulders, distant mountains, golden hour, wispy clouds. And I'm not sure that's entirely sure that's my prompt, because I don't think I'd say golden hour. But that's the prompt that I used for this. Now, if you just make a prompt, then you're going to get what you get. And for me, it's okay, because if you look up in the upper right corner, I have a pro account and I have 1,200 generations in a month. It used to be 200, now it's 1,200. I don't know why it's now 1,000 more than it was like 2 months ago, but I will never use 1,200 generations in a month. But if you're experimenting, you're going to use up a lot just experimenting, trying to get something good. If you get a free account, which everyone in here who hasn't already had a free account can get, you're going to get like 15 free generations. And so you can go in and you can do some generations and get something that you might be able to use. Maybe you'll get a few good ones out of 15. But the way to make it a little bit better so that you can not waste a bunch of them is I would go to this explore page where they have a bunch of ones that you can't even make. They're just sort of templates that you can sort of start off with if you want. And you can find one in here that has some space in it in the kind of scene that you want to make. And then you can redo it. And that way it can take the structure of that one and you don't waste it just trying to guess what's going to create something that you might like. So let's say you want something with a outdoors thing with a lot of land and some mountains in the background. Then you can use this one right here, or this one over here, or maybe this one's too high up. You want one that's ground level because you want to make a ground. So if I click into this one, for instance, I can see it's ground level. I can see that there's some boulders that are kind of close to me. I don't know if I could use those, but I can also see that going in this direction, I've got a lot of space that I probably can use. So if I wanted to remix this one, you have that choice here. So if you just create something, you just type in your prompt and it's going to make whatever it makes. And then you can go from there. But if you start with something that you think is kind of somewhat like what you want, then you can remix it and you can say, I want this to be an wait a minute. Apocalyptic, is that right? Is it Y? Anybody know?
That's what a lot of.
No. ILY? No. YLI? Apocalyptic future city. With mountains. No. Yeah, okay. Now, future city in the distance. Not even anything close to what. We'll forget the mountains. Let's see what happens. With machines, and factories. Let's just see what that does. And we should say what time of day. How about at dawn? With green radioactive clouds and acid rain. Let's just see what that does. Remix this. Oh, wait, we need to choose a style. So right now it's using this sort of painting style. I probably don't want that for this particular thing. These are all artistic ones. So these are all going to have kind of a painterly type of style, and there's a bunch here. Some of them are going to be more realistic, like a digital painting type of style, which could look good in a background for certain scenes. Some of these ones might, like that one. That one actually might look okay. It's a sci-fi concept art style, but it's still pretty realistic. So let's try it. And I'll remix this. So what I'm expecting to see is there's going to be something where those boulders are. There might be some water there too. But I don't think it's going to have trees. Maybe it will. So when you remix, it keeps the structure of the image, but replaces it with new stuff. And so, all right, it kind of made it. So I didn't say at ground level. I should have said at ground level. It basically placed me up in the air and kind of some interesting things there. Maybe I could use it. But let's try that again, and we'll just copy that. I'm not going to use this because it placed me way up above the ground. I'm going to go back. I just copied my prompt. I'm going to go back here again. Let's just go back to the thing that we had a second ago. Remix it again. I'm going to put in that prompt. I'm going to say at ground level. And let's use a different filter this time. So I'm going to go out and go more towards the photoreal type of realistic filters. And let's find one that might look good for this particular kind of prompt. Okay, so let's use this one, dystopian worlds emphasizing dark aesthetics. I'm going to try that one and remix it and see if I get a better result. Now you do have negative text. Like if you don't want any people or anything, you can turn on negative text and put on like people, animals, happy. I don't know. We'll try that. So what I like about this program is that to create this kind of an image, which is a very specific kind of image to get it to wrap correctly on the inside of a game engine, is pretty time consuming and difficult. This can do it very, very quickly. And you don't have to use this image. So in a lot of cases, I start with this, download it, and then I go and run it through a different AI program to remix that to make it into a different type of image, maybe more realistic. Because this one, they still come out a little bit stylized sometimes, not quite as realistic as sometimes I would like it to be. But this one looks pretty good. This kind of has, I could see making this into a scene. Like there's some interesting stuff here. I especially like this stuff that's kind of silhouetted in the background there. And I can see putting a ground plane through here with some rocks like this so that you can't tell the difference when it transitions from a 3D ground into this sort of ground back here. And there's some interesting lighting stuff back here too. Some little spots of lighting. This one, I don't think I mean, I could use that maybe. But it's kind of close to me. And I don't know if I would. I could put some boulders. I know where I can get some boulders like this inside a fab that are free. And I can put some boulders like that in there and kind of create a transition to that background there. So that's not bad. I download this. And you can choose what you want. I would not use these. These had problems in Unreal Engine. I mean, they might be fixed by now, but last semester when we were using this, the HDR was like causing some really sort of hot areas in the background that didn't look normal. Like the lighting was messed up. Yeah.
Is that available for the paid version? Because everyone doesn't seem to be well.
Yeah, so I'm going to download an 8K JPEG of this. So what you can do, yes, you can't download anything. You can only generate with the free version, 15 generations. But you get those in your history. And when you look at them in your history, if I go back to my history here, when I click on one of these, there's a share button, which will copy the address of this image in your history. And you can send it to me. And I have 1,200. Actually, you know what? It doesn't even hit my 1,200 because they only charge you for generations. They don't charge you for downloading. So I can actually download all of yours without losing one of my 1,200 generations. It doesn't cost me anything. And I don't mind doing that so you can test it out. So my pro subscription is paid for by the school anyway. So, you know, you're in the class, you're part of the school. Makes sense that I do. So, just share that, send it to me in an email. Don't send me 15 to download. It takes time. I'm not going to do that. Like five of your best ones, right? At max 5. And I'll do 5. So this is like the thing that I was talking about with that film festival thing, 48-hour film festival thing. This, you can get this done like in one session, in an hour, we can have a background. And then we can bring it in and test it out. So the way you're going to bring it in, this is how you do it. I downloaded it. Just for the heck of it, I'm just going to show you another program because I wanted to talk about these this week. Let me see if I can get into it. If not, I'll switch machines. So Magnific. I also have a subscription to Magnific. They all cost a little bit. You could do a monthly thing. It's not that much. Magnific is a little bit more expensive than some of the other ones. But what it allows you to do is it allows you to change the style of images. Like here, I'm taking a picture of Dick's Park and I'm changing it to look like Fortnite. I don't particularly like what it did, but I'm still working on that. But that's kind of one of the things that it can do. It can restyle, what they call style transfer, because we want to do a Fortnite version of Dick's Park, and we're going to do a mega grant for that, and we need to have some concept art. So I'm working on that. The other thing that it can do is it can take your image and just upscale it and change it a little bit. And it's called, there's an upscaler which will make it upscale it from, say, a 4K image to an 8K image or even higher. But I actually want to use something called Mystic. There's also a relight thing where you can relight your images. But the Mystic thing will upscale it, but it will also change it based on some other image or prompt. So let's just see if we can do something with that image using like just a prompt and change it a little bit and see what it does. Sometimes it makes it more detailed, more realistic. And I end up using it. And sometimes I don't. So you have a certain amount of credits here, and I can still use my credits. I have a 8K image that I downloaded. Now, it's not actually going to let me upscale an 8K image in Mystic. I think it has to be like a 4K image. For a background, you probably want 8K. So if I go to my downloads and I'm going to open this image in Adobe Photoshop because I'm going to downscale it. I have the original 8K. I could use that inside of Unreal Engine. Because it surrounds your entire thing and is actually pretty big, potentially in your camera's view, you want a high resolution 8K image for a background. So here's my image. You can see that it has the kind of equirectangular thing where things are curving towards the edges. And it should be continuous across the scene from left to right here. And what I want to do is, normally what I do a little bit with these anyway, is I go in and I adjust them slightly with shadows, highlights. I probably don't want to do too much because there's not really any harsh shadows or anything in this anyway. But I try to bring out a little bit more of the details by just adjusting this so the shadows are not quite so dark. So that's just in your adjustments, shadows, highlights, because if you have black shadows, they basically have no information in them and they're not that interesting. So I would like to usually pull that out just a little bit. And I can also pull out some details in the highlighted areas like that background. I can make the clouds show up a little bit more instead of being blown out. It's also going to add a little bit of color to it, and you can pull the midtones up if it's going too far and you want to pull some of those shadows back a little bit. And you can go between preview and what you have to see what the difference is. And you can decide whether you think you want to leave it or not. I'm gonna go with that a little bit, with a little adjustment, and maybe I might bring up the vibrance colors a little bit too, and my saturation a little bit to get a little bit more color in that background. And then I'm just gonna, I could go ahead and save that over the old one. In fact, I think I will. I'll just do a file save. It's just gonna save the AK image. It might actually be better. Uh, it might be smaller, saving it out of Photoshop. And then I'm going to also go to an image size, and I'm going to bring this down to 4096, which is 4K by 2048, because I'm going to take it into magnific and I'm going to upscale it to 8K again. So I'm just going to do a file, save as, and I'm going to put 4K edited on the name at the end of the name. So I'm just showing you my process when I'm doing backgrounds for Unreal Engine. I created in Blockade Labs, I downloaded high resolution, I bring it into Photoshop, I added a little bit, and then I go and I might try another AI program to see what I get, to see if I can get anything even better than what I had. So I'm going to go back and I'm just going to try Magnific Mystic, which is going to allow me to upload the image. I want the 4K one because otherwise it's not going to really let me. I think it'll be too high resolution when I try to go. Actually, oh, we'll just go back out to 4K. That's fine. Yeah, I think it won't let me do 8K. And then I'm gonna. I could choose a style reference. So let's just see. Do I have anything in here that we could? So let's say, okay, so this is the one I got. And this is another one that has some more interesting colors and stuff. So let's just use that as like a style reference and see what it does. I'm going to choose this one as my, so it's another dystopian one, and I'll choose that. I'll choose one of those as a style reference. Let's just do this one here. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I forgot. It's only going to let me do one or the other, so I don't want this. Yeah, we'll use the structure reference instead. That's fine. And we'll put in dystopian landscape with futuristic factories and blue lights. It's not a great prompt, but sometimes it takes a little while to figure out a good prompt. And we'll just try it and see what it does. And we're going to add a little bit of creative detailing. And each one of these things will tell you how these work. Higher values can cause you some issues. So you usually don't want to pull it up too high. And we're going to use Sparkle. And you can read about what these different engines are. Sparkle is kind of like a median road. It's not too realistic and it's not too stylized. And let's just see. We'll generate one image and see what it looks like. We could generate several, but let's just generate one and see what we get. And then I'll just decide, do I want to use that one or am I going to just go back to the one that we export from Blockade Labs? So this is the process. Like making the Blockade Labs was pretty quick. And now I'm seeing, can I generate anything else that might be more interesting or different than that? And I'd probably want to put some more thought into that as far as the prompt for that. But we'll see. Now it totally depends on, because this is upload, like most of these programs, they're all working in the cloud, right? They're not working on my local machine. So when I put this request in, depending on how many people are doing stuff on Magnific and putting different requests in, it depends on how long it's going to take. So it really made it a very, very different image. And the whole blue stuff that I put in the prompt really kind of became a major part of this image. It's interesting. I don't think I would use it because it's like too much blue, but it is kind of interesting. So I could like continue working on that. I could even maybe, if I really wanted to, I could maybe, because if you look at this, the structure is the same. So I use structure as my reference image. And so if you look at the background buildings there, they're all the same. It's just changed sort of all of the lighting and the stuff that's in the foreground, the rocks and things. So I could probably take both of these images into Photoshop and probably composite parts of both of them into a final image if I wanted to. And, you know, take some of the blue lights and stuff and put it into the other image. But I'm not going to do that for time's sake. But because they're the same structure, I think I could credibly do that. I'm going to go with this one though. So I'll go ahead and use the original one. I can, if I want to download this new one that I just made, I can just click the download button and I'll download 100% quality in case I decide I do want to use it. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is go in, I need to take that image that I'm going to use here, and I'm going to use actually the 8K one since that's going to be the best one for me to use. And I need to change it from a JPEG to an HDRI image. Now, HDRI means high definition rendered high dynamic range image. Yes, high dynamic range image. That's it. What it means is when you take a high dynamic range image with a camera, some cameras can do that. They actually take multiple photographs with different f-stops to make one image that has sort of multiple lighting in it. So it has like layers of lighting in it. And it makes a very rich image that can be used inside of a game engine for lighting. And that's what we have to make a background in Unreal Engine, or at least the HDRI background. And so we have to convert this. It's a JPEG right now. And it's kind of going to convert it and fake it a little bit because this actually does not have multiple layers like that. But it does need to be an HDRI image. And the way you're going to do that is online. There is a website called Convertio. And it's a free website that lets you convert things, files. And you can choose a file, such as this JPEG file. And I want to convert it to an HDR. Sometimes they call it HDR, high dynamic range, and sometimes they put the I on there. So I'm going to go to an HDR. It's now 13, almost 14 megabytes. It's going to go up to probably around 50 or 60 megabytes because it's going to add those layers in there. So I'll go ahead and hit convert. It'll only take a matter of seconds. And then we'll download it again. And it'll be an HDRI image that we can import into Unreal Engine. So download it. After you download it, take a look at the file and see how big it is. I'm just going to switch back to my list view here, my details. So it's 89 megabytes now. It was 14. So it's got that extra stuff in it. It's now an HDR file. You won't be able to look at it except in Photoshop. And I will go ahead and import it into my Unreal Engine scene. Go to the content browser, go to my content folder, and I'm going to right-click the empty area to add a new folder. And I want to call this HDRIs, something like that. If you want it to come up near your other folders, I can do the same convention. I could put my at the beginning of it. So my HDRIs, no spaces in your names in a game engine. Just don't put spaces and hit enter. Then I'm just going to click into that, switch over to my downloads folder, and drag the image in that I made. Now you can see that these images sometimes when they come out of these programs are really a long-winded name. You might want to cut down that name a little bit before you bring it into Unreal Engine because it doesn't like long names. And I'll go ahead and drag it in there. So once it processes it, you'll see the image come up on the little icon. And you probably want to do a file save all. And we can go ahead and create a background. So the way you're going to create a background is I want to go to my plugins again. So edit plugins, or you have it docked here, and type in HDR, and you get the HDRI backdrop. Turn it on. Restart, because it's going to ask you to restart every time you turn on a new plugin. It's going to restart. And if you haven't saved, it'll ask you to save and then restart. And when it comes back up, that plugin will be enabled. And you will be able to add an HDRI backdrop to your scene. Okay, so we're back in our scene. Threw me out of my camera, so I'm going to put my camera back on again. Also, it closed my sequencer, which is why you can't see my image of my face there anymore. I'm going to go ahead and say yes, which will open the sequencer again and put that back. But I want to add the HDRI backdrop. So now it should be available for me to add in the standard place where I go to add stuff to the scene up here. Go to a little plus symbol, and probably is the easiest thing to just type in HDR, and you're going to see it, and choose it, and it'll come in. Now, it's going to be placed wherever it places it. Usually it's not in the center of the world. You can see I have all kinds of numbers here. It's currently selected in my outliner, and I have all kinds of numbers, which means that it's not in the center of my world. I will go ahead and click the little arrow button next to those to center it, and it should be placed correctly now because I'm building this scene from the center of the world. That's just a good practice. And my MetaHuman's in the center of my world. If you do need to move things up or down a little bit in the Z-axis, you can do that, especially if you're getting a lot of flickering, because it's maybe the HDRI is sitting right on top of the grid for the back, the ground, the floor here might be sitting right on the same thing. If I look at both of these things, the positioning, the location in Z is going to mean whether they're sitting on top of each other. If they were 0, 0, 0, they'd be flickering. You'd see them flickering. But I have mine set to negative 0.5 for that floor, and so it's down just slightly, and that way it's actually not sitting on top of each other. So I don't have to move anything. And then what I want to do is replace this HDRI backdrop default image, which is just like a field, with something else, with the one that I brought in. Now, before I do that, there are some things on this HDRI that it might be easier to see if I do it on this field. One thing is the projection center It's got a number in the Z. And if you hover over that on this sort of like this virtual slider, if you click and drag, you can see how it will move that ground. And you see in the actual camera view that it's effectively, when I get a bigger number in there, it's moving the ground, the background up. And if I go the other way, it's moving it back down. This is important to know about because look what happens to the trees if they're not far enough out. They'll actually start stretching. Because what this is it's a big dome with a flat bottom. And if I zoom out in this view right here, if I just hit my S key and start zooming, eventually I'm going to pop through. Actually, let's just turn that up. Where's my camera zoom? Who knows? Tell me. I've forgotten. They move it. Yeah.
You could just scroll. Like while you're moving, if you hit the S key to back up, you can scroll.
Okay. That's what I wanted to see. So what we have here, thank you. What we have here is what this HDRI backdrop looks like. It's a big dome. And so if we want to see it correctly on the character, if I'm down here where I can kind of see from the characters or from a player's point of view, then if I'm pulling this thing, I don't care about the ground, right? The ground I'm going to put something over. What I'm looking at is the horizon line and where the trees are and where my ground is going to like intersect with that background to make it look like the illusion of a continuous space that keeps going and going and going. And I don't want any trees or big signs or buildings distorted flat on the ground, on the bottom part of that dome, because that's going to look weird. Everything that I want to actually see needs to be on the upper part of the dome. And so you want to use this, and it works in conjunction with the size. So if I make the size of this whole thing bigger, then it's going to change the projection center's effect. So let's say I put 300 in there. And basically that's the size of that dome, right? So if you have too small of a dome, like if you put 50 in there and you're making a game, you're going to have a very small game. It might be fine for a cinematic or something in the virtual production lab where we're just shooting something in the wall. But if you're actually going to move around or move the camera around, you may want more space, but you may not want too much space because that is going to change the lighting and change the projection center. So let's put the other one on there. I'm going to go back to it and drag it on. You see it, the cube map is where I want to put it. That's where the actual image is that's in the background here. And that's what they call this equirectangular image, is a cube map. It's not really a cube, but it's not the greatest name. And then you drop it on there and you have now my other image that I can look around in 360 to see what it looks like. Looks pretty cool, actually. And so if I zoom in a little bit more, this is kind of what the camera sees, and it kind of looks like there's some kind of like construction plane, construction site with fog. You can't see a lot there, and part of that's dependent on the setting of my camera, settings of my camera. But and I've got the focus set on his face, so it's all blurry anyway. But you still probably want to, you'll have other shots, medium shots and far shots after this one, presumably, that will show more of that background. And so you kind of want to place it where you think is the best way for the lighting in this scene. So if I have that HDRI backdrop selected, if I rotate it in Z, I can move it and I can look and see, where do I want the lighting to be for this? Like if I put that structure with those lights behind it, that could be kind of cool. In fact, I could put that more like there. That was kind of originally what I was thinking anyway, is that have that building sort of on the left here, and then have this stuff more on the right, shooting in this direction. And therefore, this red light that I have for my 3-point lighting structure actually looks like it's part of this light on that building that's in the background. Let me just hide this guy. So that actually works as an image, as a shot. That looks pretty good. Now, I probably want to adjust the intensity on this. I may not want it to be set to 1. I might want to go down to like 0.5. If you want to see what your lighting looks like from this image, you can turn off your directional light and your point light and your other directional light. And you can So normally I can see some effect from that. Looks like maybe I need to turn something on that isn't turned on right now. It shouldn't be black. Yeah, it's not affecting it, the lighting. So I'm going to put this back down to 1. or even less than 1. Because when I add the other lights in, it's going to be too bright. So I'm going to have to look that up. Yeah, I'm not getting any lighting in my scene. So from the HDRI. So let me look that up and make sure that I'm there. There must be something I need to turn on. Normally, it could be, and it's a new version of Unreal Engine, that there's something new here that it's not on by default. Normally, I would just put that in and I would get a little bit of lighting from it. And I'm not. So I'll have to do a Google search on that. So I do kind of I can simulate some of this lighting in here. I probably don't want this super bright directional light on this side based on this scene. So if I was going to kind of match the scene a little bit, I probably would want, I mean, there could be like another light over here. Yeah, there actually is a sun over there. So, but it's still very sort of overcast. So I think probably maybe I will leave it a little warm, but instead of it being so strong, I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And I'm going to add a little, since there is so much sort of bounce light around, I'm going to go to this other one and just bring it up a little bit more. So, I mean, this is the artistic part. Lighting is, I mean, you want to look at what your scene is and try to mimic the lighting to some degree, but it's going to be ultimately down to what looks good to you. Another thing is I would always set your lights to be movable, so that rather than stationary. We're not going to have that many lights, and that's going to make them dynamic. And I think probably I would move that light a little bit too, maybe rotate this directional light. Okay. All right, so some other things. So I have a background. I have it looks good in my camera view. I mean, it looks pretty good. So I can go with that for my test, for my animation test. So I would continue working on my animation with the tools that I showed earlier. Let's take a break. I think, yeah, let's take a break. There's a couple of other AI tools that I'd like to just mention. But we'll talk about those when you get back. These tools, one of them is free and it just sort of was released by Google called Nano Banana. Do you guys know about that? It's what they're calling it is a Photoshop killer. Is that it will be able to do a lot of what Photoshop can do. And easier and faster. And they've trained it on their own source material, which they have a lot of. So like they have a whole image repository and stuff and so it's something that they're not charging anything for. It's free. And you guys should know about it because you might want to use it. So we'll take a look at that when you get back. Let's just take like a 10-minute break, 15-minute break. And I'll try to see why my HDRI is not lighting my scene. Aha, other people have said HDRI not working.
It's so,
Visible in ray tracing.
okay, I just, cause I have to like transfer stuff back and forth with my life. And I didn't see like this initial. Maybe, yeah, so it's probably. So. Maybe. Do you have? Do you have it? On the computer? Yeah. I don't even know why. I mean, I looked up in that big shit. Really, so I ate breakfast, that's something I'm practicing. And I woke up at 12:45. I lived 30 minutes away from you. Yeah, so I was.
Visible in ray tracing.
I already done the back up.
Aha! I made it 500 size and it suddenly came on. Okay. So 300 turns it off.
My God. I'm not gonna volunteer, but I probably will need to come to I have to think on fire. Or there was no Yeah, I know. Because that's, I want to, I want to volunteer. Only money like holding like running to the people around the garden, holding the not holding the yeah, we'll see how far it is. That's like very.
Get your geek on. Okay, so let me go ahead and finish up here. So for anybody that was not here a few minutes ago, the HDRI backdrop does work. If I turn off my directional lights here, what you're going to see is that it does not go to black. And the reason it wasn't working was the size of it was not, I guess, not right. When I did a Google search on it, one of the things that the Google AI that now comes up whenever you search anything told me was it should be at least 500 units large. So I put in 500 when mine was 300 and the light came on. And if you put 300, it goes back to black again. So for whatever reason, the size of the HDRI backdrop matters. And so I would set it to a minimum of 500 and then turn your lights back on and adjust them. So this lighting that you're seeing here is only from that background. And it's filling in a lot because there's the whole scene is kind of pretty light. But I had to turn it down. I turned it down to a 0.3 intensity so that I wouldn't be blowing out my character too much with the background. And so it's down pretty low. And then when I bring my lighting back, my directional light and my other directional light that's filling things in, and then my point light that's giving me a highlight, then I get, I think, a pretty decent shot for this sort of environment. And I adjusted all those lights down pretty low. So if you look at my main directional light, it's at 0.8. My fill light is down at 0.3, and I might even want to go lower than that because it's just a little bit filling in maybe a little too much. And then my point light is down at, or is at 2. So it's actually pretty bright, but it's behind his head. So it's not really showing except on the side of his head there. But all of those things together are creating what I think is a pretty decent lighting there. And so one other thing that I want to put in my scene to adjust my lighting is a post-process volume. So if I go up to volumes, under there, you're going to have a post-process volume. And if you add that to your scene, it's just a little box that's added, say, in the center of your world. You can put it wherever you want. It doesn't really matter. You just put it at the center of your world. And what you want to do with that post-process volume is go and type in the search when you have it selected INF. So INF is going to bring up infinite extent unbound. So the way a post-process volume works is it's a volume. It's a cube volume. And it's only going to do what you tell it to do inside of that volume. But they make it so that you can make it cover your entire scene if you turn this one button on. So infinite extent unbound. You want to turn that on. Otherwise, it'll appear that the post-process volume doesn't do anything. But once you turn that on, it will affect your entire scene. And you can go in to that and you can fine tune any lighting in your scene. So you have all kinds of things that will override your lighting in your scene, like bloom, for, getting some light effects and stuff. I want to go find exposure, click on it, change it to manual, which will turn all your lights out. Then put on exposure compensation and pull it back up again. And as you pull it back up, you'll see that you're setting the light for your entire scene. That looks better. So I'm not just relying on my background. I'm not just relying on my lights. I also have this global control for the entire scene to set it to whatever I want that to be, whatever I think is going to look the best. Okay. I suggest you put that in there because it's just going to make it easier to control your lighting. And then we'll just save all. So at this point, I'm just going to continue working on this animation, try to get it as good as it can be. And then I'm going to render it. So I do want you guys, the assignment for Thursday is to render something from this scene. And it doesn't have to be a final thing. It doesn't have to be everything's perfect, but I want some kind of render. Maybe you haven't set all the keys to fix everything that you want to fix, but at least we have an animation and everybody should be able to get something where we can look at them on Thursday. And hopefully maybe you can get some lighting and a background in there too. So what I want you to do for rendering is you're going to look at whatever your render is. I talked about this a little bit the other day. Open up your render settings. And this time, I don't want you to use the AVI. I want you to use what would be the way that professionals render. They don't render to AVIs. I mean, maybe for a really quick test, but for most renders, you're rendering to frames. And so we're going to set this to an image sequence. And if you really don't want any loss or anything, PNG is probably what you want to use. For a test, we could do JPEG because it's going to be a little smaller, a little better compression, but it would not be what you would want to use for a final render. I'm going to go ahead and use a JPEG for now. And no audio. We're going to put the audio inside of Premiere or whatever editor you decide to use. We're rendering at 30 frames per second. The way the file format is going to come up is there's going to be a frame number with a certain amount of padding. So if you have 1,000 frames, you up to 9,999, you can use a zero pad frame numbers of 4. All right, so it's going to do 0001, 0002, 0003, all the way up to 9,999. If it's going to go over to 10,000, you got to put a 5 in there. But that's what your zero pad frame numbers are. And make sure that you set it to go to a folder that's going to have all those frames. Don't just put it to your project folder because you're going to have a bunch of frames. And so you want to be able to have those isolated in a folder. And so I would need to go out to my file explorer, go to my wherever I plan on rendering these. Let's just do it in here. And I'm going to make a new folder, right click, new folder. And I'm going to call it renders. And that's where I'm going to render. So inside of Unreal Engine, click on your pathway to where you're going to render to. Find your renders folder, choose it. And check to make sure that you're going to be using cinematic quality. For a test, you could do full size, but I kind of recommend maybe doing a partial size instead of full size. So right now I've got it set to 1920 by 1080. If we want to do a test, you might want to go smaller than that. Or, if it doesn't take long, you could try full size. And if it takes too long, then do a smaller one. And then just make sure you're going to render what you want to render. Do I really need to, like I said before, render all of this sort of stuff that I'm not going to use, which is basically, actually, you know what? Render the whole thing. You know why? Because it'll be easier in Premiere to put the audio on it. Because if you just render a part of it like I have here, 907, your audio is not going to sync up. So I would render from 0 to whatever end frame. The end frame doesn't matter because the audio is going to go to wherever it goes to. So, if I look at how far my thing goes, I don't really need to go all the way through it. I can end it a little early, but I want to start at 0. Or actually, you know what? 1. We'll start at frame 1. So 1 to 1672, you might want some padding if you're going to use frame 1. Because in Unreal Engine, it's a real-time render. It warms up. And so the first 5 or 6 frames are usually garbage because the lighting isn't warmed up yet or things are not happening correctly yet. The camera's not ready yet. So if you want to use frame 1, then you got to give it some of these paddings, these warm-up counts, paddings in here. I know that I'm not going to use frame 1, so I'm not going to worry about it. We'll just see what it looks like. So that should be fine. I'm going to just save all and render it. And I'm going to switch my computer while it's rendering. That's that problem I had before. I forgot about it. I don't think that's a mistake. I think that's an issue I got to fix. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that render and make sure that my camera cuts is set to the correct thing. Looks correct to me. All right, while I'm trying to deal with that, I did want to mention a couple of other AI things that you can start to look at because, like I said, Nano Banana is free. So if you haven't already looked it up, by the way, this meta wardrobe, it's made for the parametric clothing for the new metahumans. And so it's not free, but it's not that expensive. If you really like the outfits that they have, they seem to have, this is like, they have a bunch of different clothing options that, depending on how interested you are in them, they might be worth paying for. I think you can get it for like less than $30. I did put I put in the syllabus a link to a video. Let me just go there. In the syllabus and in Moodle, I put a link to a video on how to make any clothing on Fab into parametric clothing. It's pretty cool, and it's not that hard. I've looked through the video. It looks legit. It looks like it should work, but I haven't tried it yet. But I did put it in there. And the link is this easiest method to add any clothing to any metahuman. That's the link.
There, I was gonna say that.
Welcome back to Creators. So you want to put any clothing on any MetaHuman? I've got the step-by-step method ready for you. Let's just go ahead and get started.
So it's a 20-minute video. He goes through the whole thing. I think it looks like it's going to work. So if you're still struggling with clothes or something like that, this might be something to try, to go through this and give it a try. All right, Nano Banana. It's a really weird name. I don't know why they call it that. But if you go to Google AI Studio, you can sign up for free. And it's an image editor. Oh, and you're gonna have to do it on your private, because it won't let you through your school Google. For some reason, they have that disabled. But if you go in your private, personal Google thing, you can sign up for it, and it looks pretty cool. Just take a look. It just came out like a few days ago. And like this says, Google's Nano Banana just killed Photoshop. It's wild, how to use it, and it's free. So you might want to check it out. It's another tool in your toolbox that you don't have to pay for. And then that's it. I'm not going to go over anything else. I'll talk about some more stuff on Thursday, but I think I've done enough for today. Any questions about anything? Yeah.
So something like the HDRI only useful when it was like not in focus of it, because like when there's like any architectural detail, it just doesn't.
No, I've used it in game. I've used it in a lot of things. As long as it's a background, it looks fine. Like it, but you need to have a world built up in front of it. So we haven't done that. There's nothing in there except that. But once you, like, if I put a ground plane and sculpt it and put texture maps on it and then add some fab, you have all kinds of fab 3D meshes that you can go through and find, like rocks, buildings, all kinds of things in here. Once you populate the foreground, I mean, it's creating an illusion, right? So you want to create things in the foreground that will be actually 3D objects. And then the background will be the HDRI backdrop. That's how it's going to look believable. Because you're never going to run to it. You're never supposed to get to that. It's like a lot of games. If you ever tried to run to it, it's going to stop you with some kind of collider that you'll get to before you get to the backdrop. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So that's something that we're doing.
Building some of the ground plane, sure. Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. For this shot, we don't need it because we're focused on the face.
Right.
But for the next shots or for the next animation that we do, we'll break out of that and do more of a normal camera cinematic type of shot. Any other questions? Okay, so and then we also want to do some body animation too, to add to the characters. Now, we don't have to necessarily take this animation all the way to a final animation. If you guys want to change gears to something else after Thursday, after we look at some of the face animations, you can continue to work through it and make it better to more of a final face animation. If you want to build off of that, you can do that too. But I mentioned last week going out and finding some shots of actors, and I did that myself. Did anybody else do that? Yeah, so you got some. Did you guys find some? Because I had a hard time finding good ones.
I mean, I used like the Be Good Man one, and that one's like pretty close up, so.
Yeah, but I had a hard time finding one where I had enough of it that I thought I could do a decent.
You just have like a whole clip.
Yeah, because it cuts a lot, and so you're not going to be able to use the parts that are cutting And go back to this machine for a second and just show you the ones that I put links to some of the ones. And I actually used another AI program to upscale what I found because most of the YouTube videos were blurry and it didn't let me download them. So what I did was I just made them full screen and turned on Zoom and recorded them with Zoom at 25 frames per second. And it looked fine, but it was blurry. It was pretty blurry. So I upscaled it using a program called Topaz Labs Astra. And it's for upscaling video, but also adding some details and stuff. And I did Andy Serkis's MetaHuman. So it's kind of meta. So I have, where is it? I did this one.
Is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told.
Now, this is just a test. It's only 20 seconds long. Because that is the limit to the AI program that I use to upscale it. And, it was a lot more blurry than this, and this is still a little blurry. But I'm interested to see if the MetaHuman process will do this well, and I can then put it on my face and change the voice. And again, I would credit Andy Serkis's performance, and this is not him, this is his MetaHuman. But there are some other ones that I found that were potential. Yeah, so this was one that's the quality of the original, maybe.
And tomorrow, brief.
And it's quite a bit longer too. And then another one that I liked that I
capture to work like a mirror.
is this one, which I put the link to the
To see it. I need performance capture to work
full
like a
video.
mirror. I need it to capture whether I'm acting scared or angry. And sometimes all I need is a look.
So I thought it would be interesting because this is actually from the Unreal Engine State of Unreal 2023. And do you guys know this actress? So she performs Senua in Hellblade, the video game, both versions. And she started out just working at the studio as a Unreal Engine artist or something, one of the technical creative positions. And they needed someone as a stand-in for some of the things that they wanted to do, and they were planning on hiring an actress for this role. And she started doing it, and they were like, wow, you're really good. And And then if you see some of the things that she's done with it, they are pretty amazing. She's probably one of the most best known. Here's her as full Senua. Motion capture actresses after Andy Serkis at this point. I also grabbed Good Will Hunting because I thought that might be
tour in the National.
although it doesn't have a lot of emotion, but it does have
skirmish over there to scare up domestic oil prices. A cute little ancillary benefit for them, but it
a
ain't
lot
helping
of
my
face
buddy at
animation.
250.
So I thought I might try to
They're
see
taking
if
their
I
sweet
can
time bringing the oil back. Of
upscale
course,
that.
they even took the
and-
liberty of hiring an alcoholic skipper who likes to drink martinis and fucking play slalom with the icebergs. It ain't too long till he hits one, spills the oil, and
So those are the ones that I thought might work. And actually with this one, it's not quite straight on, so I'm not sure how well that's going to do. So I thought I might take it into an AI program and say, take this video and straighten it and see if it does. See if it can actually do it. And then and be able to use that to see if I can get that performance and that would be interesting. I mean, if you think about it, there's so many old movies out there that if you could like take something from a 1930s movie and maybe get the whole performance and make a new version of it or something like that. It'd be really interesting. What it's other than you can't handle the truth. What's some of the other, anybody else find a good one? Okay. Robert Downey Jr. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, it's gotten hard to search for things on YouTube for some reason. I'm not getting what I'm asking for. I don't know what the deal is. Something with the algorithms. But yeah, I'm gonna try that next and see if I can get the Andy Serkis one to work. Just for the fun of it, I'm gonna play the Senua's thing so you can see what I'm talking about. I don't know if you guys have seen this. This was another Unreal Engine demo. Let's see, let's just search for it.
Please tell me that's not how you create SOPs.
Well, you got a better way?
I use Scribe. It's super.
You can see her go into
Sign perf cut, take 13.
I see through your darkness now. I see through your lies. I will show them how to see as I do. I will not appease your gods. I will destroy them.
So that was a really good demo. What's interesting about it is that they show her go into character and you can see where it switches. And of course, the animation is good. But it's not just that the animation's good, it's that it's got a certain intensity to it. So if you can get that kind of emotive quality on your character,
I see through your darkness now. I see through your lies.
that kind of intensity, it's gonna have an impact. And it's definitely coming through. And part of that is her performance. Part of it is the animators animated on top of the performance to make sure that it's all there, but also enhancing it with the lighting and the glowing eyes and all the other stuff that's going on. It's an interesting video game too. Has anybody played it? Hellblade? Yeah, the voices and stuff. And the second one, I haven't, it just came out. It just came out on PlayStation 5, and I want to get it because it looks, as far as the rendering and the characters and the look of it, it's even more realistic than the first one. So I'm kind of interested to see what it looks like. What didn't you like about the gameplay?
I just thought it was a little, like, the lore in the game was a little bit too cliche in a way.
Okay.
But I'm not saying the game's bad, the gameplay is good too. It's just.
I got a little bored with the gameplay,
Yeah.
to be honest, and then I kind of stopped playing it. But I do like the idea of it, like the voices, and it's got a lot of atmosphere. Okay, that's all I got for you today. There's an assignment, try to get the some kind of animation up for Thursday that we can take a look at. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah. No. Somewhere, but it's 20 minutes away. Yeah. Greensboro. 70 miles one way. I wouldn't take it flying, but we got come here a lot. Yeah. Weeks. There are videos. On Google. I'm so glad I just didn't make my own. Right? And then we have a thing that it's a good one. I got it now, but everybody waiting for me. We'll sign up.
I was gonna ask you, are you allowed for this class?
No, you don't. Like, not everybody does. There's a whole room for late machine. That have software. People have. So if their laptop is on. For new laptop. Or they try. All of the machine people needing software. If there's any issue with them, then you could talk to me about it, and I can. If it says. Something that I can do, I can update. But I think they should be okay.
Is that room is open, you said, or?
Yeah.
That is not very. for?
There is, they installed a card reader.
Okay.
So if you're a MedTech student, you should be able to do that.
Do you, I'm gonna look over everything that I missed tonight, and would you maybe have time tomorrow or sometime this week, like office hours, if I have any questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
just messing.
Okay.
Or-
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.